The rain fell hard against the cracked sidewalks of the city, and in the middle of the crowded street an old woman stumbled with trembling hands, clutching a wrinkled envelope. People hurried past her, some shielding themselves with umbrellas, some lowering their heads to avoid the sight of frailty and weakness. Nobody wanted to stop, nobody wanted the weight of her broken steps on their conscience. But then from the other side of the street, a teenage boy froze, his sneakers soaked in puddles, his backpack sliding off one shoulder, his eyes locked on her bent frame. She was small, almost vanishing under the rain, her hair plastered white against her face, her lips quivering as though each breath was too heavy, and in that moment he felt something inside his chest twist tighter than the cold wind around him. He ran toward her, water splashing with each step, his hand stretching out before he could even think why he was doing it. She looked up at him with eyes foggy like old glass, eyes that had seen too much and forgotten too much, yet in them was a kind of desperation that cut deeper than any word. She tried to whisper something, but her voice cracked into nothing, and the envelope slipped from her shaking grip onto the wet pavement. The boy bent down, scooping it up quickly before the rain ruined what was written there. He was about to hand it back, but the corner of the paper lifted, and in that brief second he saw a smear of red across it, and bold typed words that made his breath catch. He stuffed the envelope back into her hand, his mind racing. He wanted to ask what it meant, who she was, but the way her fingers clutched it tight made him swallow his questions. She wobbled on her feet, her knees nearly giving out, and without hesitation he put her arm over his shoulder. She was lighter than he expected, fragile like bones wrapped in nothing more than soaked cloth. He could feel her heartbeat, fast and frantic like a bird trapped in a cage. People stared for a second, then turned away as if ashamed they had done nothing. The boy led her to the side of the street, under the dim awning of a closed shop. He asked her name, but she only shook her head, mumbling words he could not catch. Finally she whispered one line clear enough for him to hear, "Help me, not them, only you," and her eyes widened as if afraid that even the rain could betray her. The boy shivered, not from the cold, but from the strange pull of those words. She trusted him, a stranger, a teen. No one else around mattered, and for reasons he could not explain, he felt that he could not let her down. She pressed the envelope to his chest, suddenly her frail hands stronger than they looked, her nails digging slightly through his shirt. She whispered again, "Do not open until I am gone." Then her strength faltered, and she collapsed against him, unconscious. His heart pounded louder than the thunder above. He lowered her carefully to the ground, calling out for help, but no one came. Cars rushed by, indifferent silhouettes of people walked faster, choosing blindness over involvement. His hands shook as he tried to decide what to do. The hospital was blocks away. His phone was nearly dead, and the rain made everything colder and heavier. He glanced back at her pale face. The envelope slipped again, half open, and though he tried to resist, his eyes caught the first line of the page inside. It was enough to chill every vein in his body. It read, "I am not who they think I am." Before he could read more, a sudden shadow stretched across the awning. Footsteps approached, slow and heavy, and a voice, deep and sharp, cut through the downpour. "Boy, step away from her now." And the teen froze, his fingers tightening around the envelope, his heart screaming. A single question: who were they, and why did this old woman look so terrified of being found? The boy did not move. The rain still hammered against the awning, and the shadow of the man stretched longer and darker as he came closer, his coat heavy, and his face hidden under the brim of a wide hat. The boy's heart raced as he clutched the envelope tighter, pressing it against his chest, as though it could vanish if he let go. The old woman still lay unconscious, her breathing shallow, her lips barely parting with each fragile inhale. The stranger repeated his command, this time sharper, "Step away from her. She is not your problem." The boy shook his head, his voice trembling but firm. "She needs help, not abandonment like everyone else who walked past." The man's jaw tightened, a faint scar visible under the streetlight. His eyes narrowed on the boy, then shifted briefly to the woman, his expression unreadable before he spoke again. "Do you have any idea who she is? Do you even know what you are holding?" The boy swallowed hard, every muscle in his body screaming to run, but something stronger held him in place. That strange pull that started the moment he saw her. The man crouched low, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for the boy. "Give me the envelope. It does not belong to you, and if you value your life, you will hand it over right now." But the boy's grip only grew tighter. He could not explain why, yet something deep inside told him this envelope was not meant for the man, it was meant for him, just as the old woman had said. Only Usurans wailed faintly in the distance. The man cursed under his breath and straightened his coat. His tone softened unexpectedly. I am trying to protect you, boy. You have no idea what you are tangled in. She is not harmless. She is dangerous. The boy's mind spun as he glanced down at her frail body, her trembling hands, her weak breath. Dangerous. How could someone so fragile be dangerous? Yet the words on the page echoed again. I am not who they think I am. The man leaned closer, his breath hot against the boy's ear. If you open that letter, you will never be safe again. Trust me. Walk away now and forget you ever saw her. Forget you ever touched it. Then he stood and took a step back, as if giving the boy one last chance to obey, but the boy shook his head firmly, his fear giving way to defiance. She asked for my help, not yours, and I am not going to abandon her. The man's eyes flared with something between anger and respect, but before he could respond, a car screeched to a halt at the end of the street. Two figures in dark suits jumped out, rushing toward them. The man cursed again under his breath, then without warning grabbed the boy by the arm and hissed, "If you want to live, follow me now." The boy hesitated, torn between fear and instinct, but when he saw the two men approaching fast, their faces proved stone cold, their movements sharp and purposeful, he knew he had no choice. He lifted the old woman onto his shoulder with surprising strength and followed the man through a narrow alley, their footsteps splashing against puddles, the sound of pursuit closing in. They twisted through alleyways, past dumpsters and fire escapes, until finally the man shoved opened the back door of a deserted laundromat. They slipped inside, the smell of dust and rust filling their lungs. The man bolted the door shut and leaned against it, panting, his eyes flicking toward the boy. You really are a stubborn kid, but stubbornness will get you killed if you don't learn when to let go. The boy laid the old woman carefully on a broken bench. She stirred slightly, her lips moving silently, as though trapped between dreams and memories. The boy touched her shoulder gently, whispering, "It's okay, you are safe now." But her eyes shot open suddenly, wide and filled with terror. She grabbed his hand tightly, her nails digging into his skin, and rasped in a voice both weak and urgent, "Do not trust anyone, not even him." The boy's breath caught. He glanced at the man leaning against the door, his expression unreadable, then back at her pale, trembling face, her grip like iron despite her frailty, the envelope still pressed against his chest. He could feel the dampness of the rain seeping into the paper, the words inside like a storm waiting to break free. For he could ask her what she meant. Heavy pounding rattled the door, voices shouted from outside, "Open up now, we know she is inside." The man at the door cursed again and turned to the boy, his voice sharp, "Hand me the letter now, or none of us make it out alive." The boy's heart hammered, his eyes flicking between the man and the old woman, her desperate warning echoing in his ears. "Do not trust anyone." His fingers tightened around the envelope, the pounding at the door growing louder, the hinges shaking, dust falling from the ceiling. The boy realized he had seconds to decide who to believe, and in that moment he tore the envelope open, ignoring both of their cries. The paper unfolded, shaking in his hands, and his eyes widened as he read the first full line aloud. "My name is Eleanor Grant, and they want me dead because I am worth more than they could ever imagine." The pounding stopped. Silence filled the laundromat. Even the old woman's breathing stilled. The man's face went pale, his eyes dark with fear, not anger, and for the first time the boy realized whatever truth this letter held, it was more dangerous than anything he had ever imagined. The boy's voice trembled as he repeated the name on the letter, Eleanor Grant. The silence after those words felt heavier than the pounding rain outside, and the man by the door stiffened, his hand twitching toward his coat, as if he were reaching for something hidden. The boy stepped back, clutching the paper to his chest, his heart beating louder than the thunder above. The old woman's lips moved again, barely forming words. He had to lean close to catch them. "Do not let them take me." "Not again." The boy's eyes darted between her and the man, who now looked more like a predator than a protector, his face tight with recognition and fear. He muttered, "Eleanor, so it is true. They never stopped searching for you." His voice cracked with something like disbelief. But before he could continue, the door shuddered again, heavy strikes. Like a battering ram, the hinges squealed under the force. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The boy panicked, glancing at the man, then at the old woman, whose fragile frame shook violently, as if she feared the door breaking more than death itself. The man swore under his breath, and pulled a small revolver from inside his coat, aiming it at the door, his voice sharp over the chaos. "Boy, we have seconds left. Give me the letter, and I will get us out of here. You do not understand what kind of storm you just stepped into, but The boy's mind swirled with her earlier warning not to trust anyone, and now, as the old woman clawed at his sleeve, her eyes pleading with silent desperation, he knew the truth was buried deeper than both of them wanted him to see. Her words rattled inside, his head louder than the banging outside. Not them only. Youth door burst open, splinters flying into the air. Men in black suits stormed inside, weapons drawn, their eyes cold and precise like hunters, scanning prey. The man with the revolver fired quickly, one bullet grazing the wall near their heads, another hitting a pipe that hissed steam into the room. Chaos erupted. The boy ducked, pulling the woman with him behind an overturned washing machine. Bullets ricocheted, sparks flying the air filled with the metallic stench of gunpowder. The man shouted, "Cover me," and fired again as he dragged the bench toward the back exit, but the boy did not move. He shielded the old woman, his mind racing. What did these men want from someone who looked like she could barely stand? Who was she really, and why did her name written on one piece of paper strike such a fear into everyone around her? Suddenly one of the suited men caught sight of them, his gun raised, aimed directly at the boy's head. Time slowed, his body frozen, fear rooting him to the ground, until a sharp crack rang out, and the man fell backward, the revolver smoking in the stranger's hand, his eyes wild with something between desperation and determination. "Move, kid, no." The boy lifted the old woman again, every muscle in his body screaming from her weight and the panic of the moment. The stranger shoved open the back door and they stumbled into the alley, the cold night air a cruel slap of freedom. But footsteps echoed close behind, shouts filling the wet darkness. They ran, their shoes slipping on slick pavement, the boy's lungs burning, his grip on her unyielding even as exhaustion threatened to drop him where he stood. Finally they ducked into a narrow stairwell, the stranger pulling the door shut behind them, muffling the sound of pursuit. The woman wheezed in his arms, her lips pale, her body trembling, but her eyes sharp. For the first time since he met her, she looked straight at him and whispered, "They will never stop until the truth is out there." Boy asked, his voice hoarse, "What truth? What are you hiding? Who are you really?" She smiled weakly, though her face was lined with pain. "I was never just an old woman. I was the one who built everything they stole, and now they want me arrested." The boy frowned, confused. Stolen what? Built what? But before he could ask further, the stranger cut in, his tone edged with urgency. "We cannot stay here. They will track us down within minutes. We need to keep moving." The boy glared at him, his distrust boiling, but the old woman's grip on his wrist tightened. Again her eyes piercing into his. "Do not let them take me." Her voice cracked, but her will unshaken. The boy's chest heaved with the weight of the choice. He had stumbled into a storm bigger than anything he could imagine, yet walking away no longer felt possible. He looked down at the crumpled letter still in his hand, and knew it was only the beginning. Whatever secrets Eleanor Grant carried, they were enough to turn hunters into predators and strangers into enemies, and he was now the only one standing between her and the darkness closing in behind them. Faint footsteps echoed again, drawing closer. The boy steadied himself, clutching her tighter, and whispered to her, "We will find the truth, no matter what it takes, even if I have to stand against all of them." His voice shaking, yet steady enough to make her eyes glisten with a flicker of hope. And from the shadows above the stairwell, a second figure moved silently, unseen by all watching their every step. With cold, calculating eyes, the stairwell smelled of rust and damp stone. The boy's breath loud in his own ears as he pressed the frail weight of Eleanor against his chest. The stranger motioned for silence, his revolver raised, his eyes darting through the cracks of the doorway, but the boy's attention was fixed on the letter clutched in his hand, the words blurred by the rain but still legible enough to remind him that nothing about this night was normal, nothing about this woman was ordinary. Scraping sound above made his heart jolt. He tilted his head, and for a split second thought he saw a flicker of movement high on the stairs, a shadow pulling back into darkness. The stranger froze to his head, snapping upward, his grip tightening on the gun. Then a voice from the darkness, low and smooth, "You should have given her up when you had the chance." Before the boy could react, a figure stepped into view, dressed in black, leather, eyes glinting with calculation, his steps deliberate. He was neither one of the suited men nor a random pursuer. He carried no gun, only a blade that caught the dim light of the stairwell, his smile cold and confident. Eleanor gasped, her body convulsing as if recognizing him, her lips forming one broken word, "Brother." The boy's knees nearly buckled from the shock. Brother? This old woman had a brother alive, hunting Her in the middle of the night with killers behind him and a knife in his hand. The stranger beside the boy cursed under his breath, his revolver swinging toward the new arrival. But Eleanor's grip tightened around the boy's arm with surprising strength, her eyes burning through him. "Don't let them." "Silence me," the brother spoke, his voice steady. "Eleanor, you should have stayed gone. You had everything you needed and more, but greed was never enough. Now look what you've dragged into this. A child, a fool, with no idea what monster he is protecting." The boy bristled at his words. His jaw clenched. This was no monster. This was a woman, abandoned by everyone else who chose him for reasons. He did not yet understand. The stranger pulled the boy behind him, aiming the revolver squarely at the brother. But the man only laughed low and humorless. "You think a gun will end me? I've survived worse betrayals than lead. Eleanor knows that better than anyone." His words cut deeper than the knife in his hand as he stepped closer, and Eleanor's body trembled against the boy. He could feel her fear, or maybe her guilt, pulsing through her fragile frame. The pounding of boots echoed from the alley. Outside, the hunters closing in, their shouts bouncing off the walls. The stairwell now a trap. The stranger hissed, "We are out of time. Make a choice, kid. Either we fight our way past him, or we hand her over and walk away alive." But the boy shook his head fiercely, his voice breaking but determined. "No, I am not leaving her. She asked me, not them, only me, and I will not betray that." The brother's eyes narrowed on him, the blade gleaming brighter as he raised it slowly. Then, in a voice heavy with bitterness, he said, "Then you will learn the cost of loyalty." The stranger fired his revolver, the bullet sparking off the railing as the brother moved too fast to follow, the knife slashing across the air. The boy ducked, pulling Eleanor lower, shielding her with his own body. The clash of metal and gunfire roared through the stairwell. The boy's mind screamed to run, but his legs refused to move. His arms wrapped tighter around her as if she were the only anchor in the chaos. Eleanor coughed violently, blood staining her lips, her voice barely a whisper in his ear. "Do not let the truth die with me. Promise me." The boy nodded, tears mixing with the rain on his face, though he could not understand what truth she meant, only that he could not fail her. Stranger and the brother clashed in the cramped stairwell, gun against blade, sparks flying, concrete chipping with each miss. The boy felt the tremors of their fight shake the steps under him. Then suddenly a deafening silence. The revolver clattered to the floor, kicked away, the brother's blade at the stranger's throat. The fight over in one swift, brutal motion. The brother's eyes turned cold and final as he growled, "Give her to me, boy. You have no idea what she really is." The boy's chest heaved, his mind torn, but Eleanor's hand pressed weakly against his, her eyes glassy yet still sharp enough to whisper, "He will kill me for what? I know you must choose me or them." No. And in that moment, as the thunder crashed above and the footsteps outside grew louder, the boy realized there was no safe path, no easy way out, only a choice that would change everything. He tightened his hold on her, looked the brother in the eye and whispered, "I choose her." The blade pressed closer to the stranger's throat. The brother's fury ignited, and the stairwell shook with the weight of what would happen next. The stairwell vibrated with tension, the boy clutching Eleanor so tight it felt like she might break in his arms. The brother's blade hovered against the stranger's throat, one small push away from spilling blood. The footsteps outside drew closer, pounding against the pavement, echoing through the walls. The boy's choice had been made, but the consequences had not yet fallen. The brother's eyes burned with fury at the boy's words, his voice sharp as broken glass. "You choose her, then you choose her secrets. You choose her curse. Do you even know what you are holding?" The boy tightened his grip on Eleanor, shaking his head. "I do not care what she is hiding. She asked for me. She trusted me, and that is enough." The brother sneered, lowering his blade only slightly, his eyes narrowing like a predator, sizing up. "Pray you think trust will keep you alive, boy? You think her words make you safe? She has ruined everything she touches. She ruined me. She ruined all of them. And now she will ruin you too." Eleanor stirred, her weak voice trembling from her lips. "You ruined yourself, not me. I built, I created, I gave, and you tore it all down because you could not stand my light shining brighter than yours." The boy froze, his mind spinning, the weight of betrayal heavy in her words. This was no simple family quarrel. This was war. Blood turned sour. The stranger took advantage of the moment, slamming his shoulder into the brother, the blade clattering against the stairs, the revolver skidding across the floor. The stairwell exploded into violent fists, colliding bones, cracking, the sound raw and brutal. The boy pulled Eleanor tighter, rushing down the steps, her frail breath hot against his neck, but her eyes locked on the fight above. her voice faint but urgent. Do not leave the letter behind. No matter what happens. The boy looked down at the paper still. In his hand, rain-stained tears blurred but unbroken. It felt heavier than his own body, as though the words inside carried mountains of truth. Stranger roared as he grappled with the brother, slamming him against the railing, sparks flying from the metal. The boy kept running, dragging Eleanor down deeper into the stairwell, each step shaking as if the building itself groaned under the chaos. Outside, the hunters shouted orders, their boots pounding louder as they closed in the boy's heart. Hammered in his chest, but his legs kept moving. They reached the basement level, a single heavy door before them. Eleanor gasped, her trembling hand pointing at it. Open it. Boy, hurry. He pushed with all his strength the hinges, groaning until finally it swung wide, revealing a dark tunnel stretching underground, damp and endless. He hesitated, but her eyes, filled with something that looked like both fear and hope, told him to move. So he stepped inside, the darkness swallowing them, whole behind them. The sounds of the fight above grew muffled, but not gone. Metal clashed, wood cracked, then silence, a silence that chilled the boy more than the noise. Eleanor's voice quivered in the black tunnel. He will follow us. He always follows, no matter where I run. He will never stop until I am gone. The boy whispered through ragged breaths. Why are they after you? What are you hiding? Her head leaned weakly against his shoulder, her lips close to his ear. Because they cannot let the world know who I really am. They stole my life. They stole my empire. They paraded my death so they could take everything I built. If the truth comes out, they lose it all. Fortunes, power, control. That is why they hunt me. That is why they fear me. The boy staggered under the weight of her confession. Billionaire. The word flashed in his mind from the letter from her trembling lips. A billionaire reduced to a frail, hunted woman, dragged through rain and blood. He could barely comprehend it, yet he knew it was true. She had built something, they had stolen it, and now her very existence threatened to expose them. Light flickered at the far end of the tunnel. Footsteps echoed behind them, sharper, faster, closer. The brother's voice carried through the darkness. You cannot run forever, Eleanor. You cannot hide behind a child. The boy clenched his teeth, his arms aching but his spirit burning. He shouted back, leave her alone. She is not yours to take. The laughter that followed was low and cruel. We will see, boy. We will see who she belongs to. They burst out of the tunnel into a forgotten subway platform. The ceiling cracked, the tracks rusted. Eleanor collapsed onto a bench, her body shaking with exhaustion, her eyes filled with pain but still burning with determination. She whispered, the truth is in the second letter. He cannot find it. He cannot know where I left it. You must promise me, boy. Promise me you will find it before he could answer. Footsteps rang out from the tunnel, the brother emerging, his knife glinting once again, his eyes wild with obsession. The boy stood in front of Eleanor, his fists clenched, his heart racing. He had no weapon, no strength compared to the man before him, but he had one thing that none of them expected. He had her trust, and he would not break it. The brother smiled, cruel and certain, raising the blade high. The boy braced himself, every nerve in his body screaming as the moment stretched endless. Then a deafening gunshot split the air. The brother staggered, blood spraying across the platform, his eyes wide with shock. Behind him stood the stranger, revolver smoking his chest, heaving, his face pale from exhaustion, but alive. The brother fell to his knees, his blade clattering to the ground, his voice a rasp of rage. You cannot stop it, boy. The truth will burn you too. Before his body collapsed to the cold concrete, the boy's breath shook his chest, pounding. Eleanor's hand reached for his, pulling him close, her voice barely audible. You are the only one left who can carry it now. They will come for you too, and when they do, you must decide whether the world deserves to know. The stranger approached, limping, his revolver still shaking in his hand, his eyes meeting the boy's with something softer than before. You have no idea what kind of war you just stepped into, but you are in it now. And from the shadows of the tunnel, more footsteps echoed, dozens, heavier, closer. The hunters were not finished, and the night was far from over. The footsteps grew louder from the tunnel, the boy's body frozen between Eleanor's frail weight on the bench and the stranger's exhausted stance, revolver aimed at the dark. The echo of boots multiplied until it sounded like an army coming closer. The boy's heart pounded with the realization this was the end of running. There would be no escape unless something changed. And now Lorna's hand shook as she pressed the damp letter against his chest, her eyes blazing with a desperate fire. Her voice cracked, but strong enough to pierce through the fear. They will not stop until I am erased. You must carry the truth now, no matter what happens to me. You must not let them silence me again." The boy gripped her hand, tears burning his eyes, his throat raw. From holding back everything he wanted to scream, he whispered, "I promised." The stranger stepped forward, his revolver raised, his voice grim. "We cannot win this fight, not against all of them, but maybe we can." By time he looked down at the boy, then at Eleanor, his face twisted with conflict, then softened in a way that made his age show. "Kid, you are brave, but bravery alone will get you killed. Take her and go. There is another exit at the far end of the platform. I will hold them off." The boy shook his head, his voice breaking. "I cannot leave you behind." The stranger smirked, though pain etched deep in his face. "You can and you will, because this is bigger than any of us, because sometimes sacrifice is the only path left." Eleanor's eyes closed tight, her tears falling silent, her lips forming words. The boy barely heard "thank you." Tunnel burst open, black suits pouring out like shadows, their weapons raised. The stranger fired the platform, erupting in flashes of light and thunder. The boy seized Eleanor in his arms, his legs trembling but unyielding, and ran down the cracked platform, her weight heavier with every step, her breath faltering with each second. Bullets, ricocheted sparks, danced off rusted steel, the stranger's roar echoing. As he held them back, his figure swallowed by gunfire yet standing unbroken, the boy forced himself not to look back, his only focus the faint outline of a door at the far end of the platform, the exit, the hope. But halfway, Eleanor's grip on him loosened, her body slumping heavier, her voice faint and fading. "Stop, boy, listen." Her eyes clouded, her lips trembling. "The second letter is hidden where they will never look. It is buried where I began. The house that was mine before they stole it holds every secret, every name, every crime. It will prove the truth." She coughed, blood staining her lips, her voice breaking. "Promise me you will find it. Promise me you will tell the world." The boy stumbled, his vision blurred, his chest crushed by grief. He whispered, "I promise, I swear, I will not let it die with you." Her eyes softened, her breath shallow, and with the faintest smile she whispered, "Then you have already saved me." Before her hand slipped from his arm, her body finally giving in to the years of running, the years of fear. The boy froze, every part of him screaming to deny what was happening, his tears falling freely, mixing with the dirt and blood. But the echo of gunfire behind him reminded him she had trusted him with more than her life. She had trusted him with the truth. He forced himself to move, his legs carrying her lifeless weight toward the door, though each step felt like he was shattering. Inside, the exit loomed ahead, broken wood, splintered from years of decay. He kicked it open, stumbling into the cold night air, the city lights distant and blurred. He laid her gently on the ground, his hands shaking, his chest heaving, the letter still pressed against him, its paper torn and wet, but its words unbroken. The stranger's gunfire faded behind him, replaced by silence. Heavy and final, the boy clenched his fists, his grief twisting into something harder, something sharper. The world had ignored her. They had hunted her, they had stolen her life, but they would not bury her truth, not while he still breathed. He lifted the letter, reading again the words that had started everything. "I am not who they think I am." His voice cracked but steadied as he whispered into the night, "They will know who you were, Eleanor. They will know what they did to you in the distance." Sirens wailed, the hunters closing in again, but the boy no longer felt like prey. He felt like a bearer of fire, a flame too fierce to be snuffed out. He tucked the letter safely into his jacket, his resolve unbreakable, his heart raw but burning with purpose. He walked into the night alone, carrying both the weight of her death and the promise of her truth. He knew the path ahead would be filled with danger, betrayal, and blood, but he also knew that sometimes the smallest act of kindness, a hand held in the rain, could ignite a storm powerful enough to topple empires. And as the city swallowed him in its endless lights, he whispered the final vow that bound his soul to hers. "They ignored you, but I will make them see. They erased you, but I will make them remember. And no matter what it costs me, I will finish what you began." The end.